The Miami Dolphins signed Andre Carter II, a former Army standout, to the 53-man roster. He was on the Detroit Lions practice squad with the Dolphins trading away Jalen Phillips at the deadline to the Eagles. There was an open 53-man roster spot and a need at edge. Miami fills that with the UDFA from 2023. And I'll be honest, Andre Carter is an intriguing name, a player that went undrafted in the 2023 NFL draft, but he was uber productive at Army, was one of the best edge rushers at the college level. So the fact that he is someone Miami eyes as a potential player that can fill in throughout the remainder of the season certainly intrigues me. And on today's show, we're going to break it all down and some injury news, so stay with us. I mentioned it off the top. Andre Carter went undrafted in 2023, but was a dominant collegiate player at Army during the 2021 season. We'll look at some of those stats here coming up in just a moment, but this is a well-traveled guy considering he's been in the league just a couple of seasons. He actually spent the 2023 season on the Minnesota Vikings 53-man roster, was signed in undrafted free agency. He made that team, but was ultimately kind of waived and kept on the Vikings practice squad for the 2024 season. But then just halfway through the year, the Raiders actually signed Carter to their active roster. Now, he did not make a 53-man roster this year and has been spending the entire season so far with the Detroit Lions practice squad. I mentioned he was a productive collegiate player. How about 21 sacks throughout a 37-game career? And in that 2021 season, he really popped off. And going into the final year of his career at Army, some people expected him to potentially be a day 2 NFL draft pick, let alone a day 3 undrafted guy that he ultimately was. He had 16 and a half sacks in 2021. Fun fact, that actually led all of college football for that season. He not only led college football in sacks 2021, he also led the college in TFL. So he is a player that was very productive. And he's a guy that can win with speed. He's a guy that can win with power. He's an interesting name that now joins this depth chart that is missing its best player. No longer Jalen Phillips. So your starting edges when fully healthy, Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb, Judon, Cameron Good, the depth pieces, and Andre Carter joins them as that fifth edge rusher. Now, he has not really appeared in any games in the NFL, only appeared in 15 of them, but appeared is a strong way to say it. He's really never gotten any snaps. He does have a half a sack in his career, spanning across the Raiders and the Vikings. Never played with the Lions in a regular season game this year. But the reason why this is such an interesting move is because, well, Miami not only traded Jalen Phillips, but yeah, they're going to likely be without Chop Robinson for this Sunday's game against the Buffalo Bills. Mike McDaniel told reporters on Wednesday morning that Robinson is still in concussion protocol, and the guess is as good as yours in terms of when he is going to be able to return. What does that tell me? He's likely not going to be playing this Sunday against the Bills, which is unfortunate because we'd like to see him really relish the opportunity that is at his hands right now, because he's going to get a lot more snaps. He only was getting about 37% of the snaps this season. That's going to bump up to 67, 70% when he's healthy with Jalen Phillips no longer on this roster. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel as we bring you daily updates on the Miami Dolphins. We'll be live for this Sunday's game between Buffalo and Miami as well, as the Dolphins look to potentially continue to tank towards the NFL draft. The signing of Andre Carter, though, will not be the only move Miami makes this year at edge. I said on a video actually just this morning that I believe Quentin Bell was going to be signed to the active 53-man roster, someone who was on the 53-man roster a year ago and has spent this entire year on the practice squad. But I actually like Miami ultimately going to poach someone off of a different practice squad. Why? Well, if you already knew Chop Robinson was going to be out for this game, you could then use Quentin Bell as a 53-man elevation. Remember, you get 3 practice squad elevations for a singular player each year. Quentin Bell still has one available. So why not sign a actual edge off of a different practice squad and then just wait a couple of days and move Quentin Bell to the active roster for game day? Now, this also could mean after this game or whenever Chop Robinson is ready to return, you ultimately waive Andre Carter and sign Quentin Bell to the 53-man roster full time. That's certainly an option, but this week against Buffalo, you're going to have Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon be your 2 starting edges. It's not the greatest thing in the world considering they haven't played well this season. Getting after Josh Allen will not be easy. It likely will not come often, and I'll tell you what, I think this Dolphins defense is in for a really long day against the Bills at home. But I wanted to share this real quick before we moved on. Bradley Chubb, who was the subject of trade rumors, and I thought a player that was going to be dealt, said the Dolphins kept him and his agent updated on the trade information and trade rumors over the past couple of days. But they also told Bradley Chubb they want him for the rest of the season, and they didn't discuss next year. I find it's interesting because I know for 100% certainty that Bradley Chubb will not be on the Dolphins roster next year. He just simply won't because he has a $31 million cap hit. You can save $20 million in savings if you cut or trade him post June 1st. You only have a $10 million dead cap. With a new regime coming in, there is just no world where Bradley Chubb is here next season. But I do also understand why Miami wants to keep him in the 305 this year because with already Jalen Phillips being off the roster, you get rid of Bradley Chubb, you're going to have Chop Robinson and Matthew Judon. Like, that's going to be arguably the worst edge group in the entire NFL with not really a lot of depth there either and no veteran leaders. Bradley Chubb, a captain on this football team, provides veteran leadership. Not that it's going to translate to winning, but it does help keep the ship afloat and keep the young fellas locked in, growing and learning in a season that is ultimately a throwaway. More injury news coming up here, but this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The football season rolls on. The weather is changing, but something that never changes is the feeling of being right. Keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. So simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. They offer stacks now as well. I mean, you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to go more than on Devon Achane, rush attempts, fantasy score, receptions? Well, now you can all in the same lineup, only on PrizePicks. I have an entry in for Thursday Night Football. More than Bo Nix completions, more than Genti receiving yards, and more than Brock Bowers receptions. I do think the Raiders have to throw the ball a lot in this game due to them being down. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. We touched on some Miami Dolphins injury news with Chop Robinson. I did want to get into the full injury report here that was announced on Wednesday afternoon before Week 10's game between Buffalo and Miami. The Dolphins had 4 DNPs on their injury report, Chop Robinson being one of them, but you also saw 2 starting secondary members in Rasul Douglas, who is dealing with a foot and ankle injury, and Ifeatu Melifonwu, who is dealing with a thumb and foot injury. Now, this is important because we already know Ashtyn Davis is banged up, and he shows up on the limited section of the injury report with a quad injury. Bradley Chubb is limited with a foot injury. Ollie Gordon, who left that game on Thursday night against the Ravens with an ankle injury, is limited, so he still has a chance to ultimately play. Julian Hill, Zach Sieler, both limited as well. Now, if you are still keeping an eye on who will be available in each individual game, tomorrow will be a big telling point for me. Chop Robinson is probably out for this week. We've already talked about that in this video. But if you're looking at Rasul Douglas, if you're looking at Dee Eskridge or Ifeatu Melifonwu, if they are inactive or DNP in practice on Thursday, the chances of a player appearing on the game on Sunday after being a DNP Wednesday and Thursday is basically slim to none. Douglas has been the best cornerback for Miami. He's been the third or fourth best defensive player this year. You put him in the same category as what Jalen Phillips was doing, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jordan Brooks. He is the 10th highest graded corner on Pro Football Focus and actually the 5th highest corner graded if you trim down and make the snaps needed to play at least 300 this season. Like, I think Rasul Douglas is a key part of this defense, and if he's inactive, you're going to rely on a lot of young corners that probably won't be able to hold up against Josh Allen and this Bills defense. But send the good vibes to Miami, like the video, because boy, oh boy, do we need good vibes in the 305. But I also want to ask you this question. Be honest with me. Do you want the Dolphins to win games this year, the rest of the season? They're 2-7. There is no hope to make the postseason. They just traded away their best edge rusher, Jalen Phillips. Are you rooting for wins or losses? Get down in the comments and let me know. Before we round out today's show, I did want to answer my own question I asked you guys. I'm torn. I got to be honest. I think there is a lot of positives to losing out. There's also a lot of negatives. Like negatives, you want to establish a winning culture. Now, with that being said, there's not really already a culture in Miami. And by winning games, you're just potentially putting off the inevitable of Mike McDaniel being fired and tearing this down, replacing Tua long term. I mean, that's a whole different video for a different day on if the Dolphins should be winning or losing these games. But I just wanted to quickly let you know where I'm at and tell you that, you're probably not getting any reinforcements back either. Austin Jackson, James Daniels, Jason Sanders, Andrew Meyer, all not ready to return from their injury. All of these players have been out since the beginning of the season or hurt in week 1. So we are now on 2 months. 2 months plus of Austin Jackson being out with a toe injury, James Daniels being out with a pec injury. And we've given you updates almost every week on if they're going to return or not. And every time we say, it'd be nice for them to come back. At this point, going hand in hand with our conversation on if it's good or bad to win games at this point, I think I would just keep him out for the rest of the year. I mean, Liam Eichenberg, who cares if he returns? Andrew Meyer, who cares? James Daniels and Austin Jackson, it would be nice to get your starting offensive line some reps together, sure, but they're going to come back in the last month of the season when the year is already over and you're eliminated from the playoffs. All they're going to do is potentially get you meaningless wins in December when the season's already over. So I got to be honest, just keep the veterans out for the rest of the year and let them heal. And to really round out the conversation, the next 5 weeks are going to be maybe the biggest 5 weeks we've seen for the Dolphins in a very long time. Why do I talk in that way? Well, Miami's last month of the year, they play the Bengals, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, and the Patriots. You're probably losing all 4 of those games. The only winnable games you have left is in Madrid against the Commanders with no Jaden Daniels, the Saints coming out of a bye week at home, and the Jets on the road as they're a tanking fire sale team. These 3 games right here with a bye sandwiched in between them is going to tell you so much about where Miami will be drafting. Dolphins go 0-3 in those 3 games. I think we're picking number 1 because I think we'll go 2-15, and the Saints and Jets will pick up a second win. If you go 2-1 in these games, you're probably picking anywhere between 4-8 with a 4-13 record. I mean, these 3 games are massive, and I'll be honest, I'm rooting for losses at this point. You just simply have to do it because there's no point in winning games. Playoffs aren't in reach. You'll be officially eliminated, in my opinion, with a loss this Sunday because you need to go 10-7. You'll be 2-8 if you lose on Sunday. So I think you're done. I think you're done. All right, that will do it for this video. Hit that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. Send the good vibes to Miami. We want this shit turned around, and I think positivity from the Dolphins fans may be the best way to do that. Let's hit that thumbs up icon.